Dude, so Jack goes to hitting practice every week on Wednesday. And this last week, his coach, right when we walked up, his coach, he's been seeing him for like a year and a half. And he's like not only just like getting better at hitting the baseball, like why we signed up, but we keep going because of the mental game that he brings to Jack. And he's awesome. He's an older guy. He's probably in his early 70s. Anyway, we walk up and he hands us this book. He's like, hey, I have a gift for you guys. And it's this book called Inner Excellence by Jim Murphy. And he writes in it and he goes, a gift for you, for Jack, maybe when he gets older, because it's kind of like complex. I mean, there's some philosophies in here that are kind of tough. But it says, to the Harris family, follow your heart. Hope this book brings you joy and fulfillment. Love, Coach. And I'm telling you, man, that was like one of the most underrated experiences. And I realized that giving someone a book that you read and enjoyed and thought about them and thought that they would get a lot out of it just as much as you did, it's such a great gift. It's like, it's better than, any other, I don't know, clothes or toy or whatever. Right.
Yeah. It shows that they're taking a part of your consciousness and that they were thinking about you while doing some self-growth themselves.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so they start their hitting practice. I'm like, well, shit, I'm going to dive into this thing while they're, spending 30 minutes together. And I'm totally into this stuff, obviously, as you know. So I start reading this thing and I'm just reading like the basic introduction, like the first, 15 pages. I haven't even gotten into the book. And I'm like, already, dude, I'm all in on this. Like I haven't put it down. I've been reading at least a chapter a day for the last week. I'm through like chapter 6, which is about halfway through. But I thought we would do a podcast about it because we talk about putting the oxygen mask on first. And that's what this is all about, is like, it's not self-serving, it's self-awareness and serving others. But you have to have inner excellence in the pursuit of that, and not the pursuit of happiness, but the pursuit of joy. And it's just a really cool story. It shows a lot of stories, but really cool mindset read.
I loved the title when you mentioned it. So I downloaded it and started getting through it, went to Murphy's Instagram. And that's when I put together and texted you right away, because I was a few chapters in. Wait a second. Is this the guy that made I didn't realize this was the book that AJ Brown was reading on the sidelines in the playoffs, or was it before the playoffs? And it created some waves and meant to look for what book he was reading and just didn't make the priority list. So I was cracking up. We obviously got to talk about how I love that he was reading self-help on the sidelines. He was
he's like in the middle of a like super important, was it playoff game too? I think he's read it with multiple games. He's just chilling on the bench reading this book. And we're like, what the?
And his coach backed him up and said, this has been a big part of the way that he approaches practice. And I had to text you. I was like, dude, I just realized this is the book that AJ Brown was reading. It's so funny how
I had no idea. And coach gives us book, and then we're on the way home from batting practice, and Jack's like, Dad, this is the book that AJ Brown was reading on the sideline. I was like, oh, really? Like I didn't look into it when that headline came out about AJ Brown, but I think it's awesome. Then they freaking went on and won the Super Bowl.
Let's jump in. I know that you wanted to focus on the first 4 chapters. We're both through those. And so kick us off. Let's talk about chapter 1 and the 2 paths of life, and get us rolling.
All right. So just in the very beginning of the book, like just the introduction, the thing that really hit home for me is, a lot of stuff that we talk about is growth along the way. And he says, you're not fulfilled by the outcome, but rather fulfilled by the experiences and growth along the way. He states that the quality of your life is based on 3 elements: your inner world of thoughts and feelings, beliefs and desires, your frame of reference, aka your mindset from which you see the world, whatever your perspectives are, and your relationships. And nothing else matters. Like really, if you really break it down, nothing else matters but your mindset, the people around you, and how you feel about certain situations and how you go about life. Like everything else is just noise. And so when he introduced like what this book's going to be about, he just brings so much clarity and makes it so simple. It's intriguing. You want to continue reading it. He's really into, he talks a lot about the samurai and talks about like the prophet. Yes. And like how they look at the world, and, like how philosophical and how powerful they were inside of themselves, to where they did not fear death. They were purely alive because they didn't fear death. They weren't clinging on to their own life. They were clinging on to how to make the impact it wasn't self-serving. It was how do I serve others constantly? And I just think the perspective is really cool. So he kicks it off with that, and it's just super profound. And he talks about defining the book. Okay, so the mindset of inner excellence is this: I compete to raise the level of excellence in my life to learn and grow in order to raise it in others. That's all. That's like what we've been talking about for the last 2 years. Like all we're doing is we're putting the oxygen mask on to become the better version of ourselves each day and every day in order to make a positive impact on others. So it was like, boom, I'm done. I'm sold. I'm reading this thing probably faster than any other book I've read. And it just so happens that it went wildly viral after AJ Brown was reading it on the bench on the sideline. And this author, I think, like thanked him and was like, but my book is like selling thousands, if not millions of copies now. And it was unprompted, but it's probably because it worked for him, not only in professional athletes. And Jim Murphy coached Olympic athletes. Like that's where his background is. He was a mental coach. Well,
he was also, he played for the Cubs as well.
Yeah, he did. He played baseball.
And in case you missed it, the Eagles won the Super Bowl too. So there's that, which is hilarious timing. And you brought up the samurai, but it also ties back to one of the things that we keep bringing up on this podcast and has been a focus and a challenge for me, which is essentialism, and how Western culture, we're so obsessed with the external symbols of success, which we're not saying don't have nice things or do the things that you want to do, but are you doing it for you or are you doing it for other people? And how this accumulation of status, material possessions, it slowly replaces our pursuit for meaningful relationships, which is the number one key indicator for happiness, is who you were around, who you impacted, who impacted you. Those are the things that impactful people sit on their deathbed with money in the bank, all these experiences, but it's the people. Almost all of them talk about, I wish I would have spent more time, or I wish I would have had a more positive impact on my peers and my community.
Yeah, for sure. And he talks about these I can't even say this word, presuppositions. I don't know. It's like basically like these beliefs that you had like ingrained in you. And he tries to shake those thoughts of like, I am my thoughts. No, you're not your thoughts. You have thoughts, but you're not. You can shake those. Sometimes terrible or shameful thoughts pop into our heads all the time, and you aren't that person. It's just we're human, and things like that happen. Your value is based on your results. No, it's not your outcomes that brings you who you are. It's not what you do that defines who you are. And the best performers were born that way, and that's not true either. Like it's all just work, and it's work ethic. And I'd sent you a text, this one line and this is all still like in the introduction of the book. I sent you this text and it said, the pursuit of extraordinary performance and the pursuit of the best possible life are the same path. So if you're striving for the best possible life, but you're not in pursuit of extraordinary performance in your own world, you're not going to get there. And so if you're focusing on how can I be excellent in all things, how can I perform at the highest level, how can I achieve peak performance, that path is the same path as your best possible version of yourself.
How many tones of relentless are in there? That Tim Grover and Jordan, even though that was really focused on basketball, same thing. It was every aspect of their life.
Everything.
And the point that you hit on, the price is really costly. Like this is simple, but it's not easy. It requires a lot of sacrifice of the normal pursuits, back to those status and material pursuits. A lot of that has to go, and all of it's inside you. And that's where this landed with me. It was a huge book recommendation because he really concisely shows that this is the inner game. The outer world's reflecting us. Yeah, it's all a mirror. And he says it in such a simple way that flows really well.
Well, and it's like no one really cares about you. I mean, if you really think about it, like if you're worried about how someone's going to think about you, or you're worried about I can't do this because it's too challenging, and what's the world going to say about me, or I'm not going to try this because my family is going to, like whatever. You're always going to have haters, and you're always going to have people in your corner. But in the end, people are very, very selfish, and they only care about themselves. And so when you focus on inner excellence of yourself and be no longer self-serving and focusing on others, you have this ability where it no longer is about you. It's just you defining purpose to make the strongest impact on the world. But you can't do that if you're not at inner peace and have inner excellence. It's like, it's full circle. And a lot of people think it's the opposite.
And this ties exactly to, what I kind of harp on about with the subconscious mind is we're battling programming in a computer in our head that had to survive. And this tribe that we surround ourselves with, in our head, it's like, I am going against the grain. I am the tall poppy trying to go a different route, or the crabs in the bucket trying to pull one down because I want to be a part of the tribe and survive. This is survival, not thriving. And so this preoccupation with ourself and how people look at us is an attachment. And that's all programmed by the past. And if we can't clear that out and make an intentional move toward the future and go external, this is internal and external, on the impact we want to have on others and the dent we're trying to put in our universe, small or big dent, that's where the magic happens. But it's not natural. That's what makes this simple, not easy.
Yeah.
Right?
Did you see this headline at AJ Brown, what he said 2 days after winning the Super Bowl?
No.
So 2 days after they won, he was like, I thought all of my hard work, everything I put into this, winning the Lombardi, celebrating with my teammates, that this would have been like the pinnacle, basically like I would have achieved ultimate success. And he goes, and 2 days later, it was gone. Like there was no achievement. There was no fulfillment. Like I didn't have that feeling of like that I thought I was supposed to have. And it's partly maybe because he's reading from this book or the mindset that he has, but like the obsession that people have with winning and outcomes, just like with anything, is temporary. That's why like Brady, he even said after winning 3 Super Bowls at 27 years old, he's like, what, I've achieved 3 Super Bowl wins. I'm 27. There's more out there for me. There's still more to do, and there's still more work. There's still more purpose. And it's not like, and Kobe would do it all the time. Like, job's not finished. He'd win 1 ring, be like, let's go win another ring. Like he just continued the pursuit of excellence. It wasn't like one and done. And that outcome that most people strive for, thinking that everything will change, their entire life will change. It doesn't actually change. And even if it does, it's only temporary if you don't continue putting in the work. And so this obsession with winning that we all have, we like to win. We want to score the game-winning shot. We want to hit the game-winning home run, whatever. Yeah, it's exciting. But that will be eliminated soon after. And if you don't get back into focusing on how do I continue this daily life, this daily pursuit of excellence that I'm striving for, I'm not going to be able to continue my joy in life. I'm not going to continue that happiness.
But what I tell you is not gone away. I would say with the high confidence intervals that AJ Brown's memories and bonds with that team are one of the infinite things that are happening. His connection with Jim Murphy for this book and what blew up in the time, those are the special things. And those are what are going to propel you to that next project, whatever AJ Brown decides to do, to keep winning, keep competing, keep having an impact. That's where the magic is. It's not that Lombardi trophy, which is one of those sweet material possessions that we think will give us fulfillment.
Well, when you're a young kid or you're in high school or college and you seek professional sports and stardom and whatever, I read this thing too. It just hit me where it's like we're always in this pursuit of the perfect life and like this, legacy and I'm striving for this. I'm striving for this. I'm striving for this. And it's like, well, what if we just created the perfect day and just did that every day? Like, what is your perfect day? Like, what does it look like from wake up to sleep? What does that day look like? And it brings you the most joy. Define that and then just do everything you can to try and do that every day.
And even though it's not going to happen, if you get a certain percentage of that day and get it close time after time consistently, your life's going to change immediately. Like back to the morning routines, the key habits. What does a good work day look like? Prioritization of the key things you need to move that day. You can rest your head on the pillow and earn that pillow and sleep better. And then it all starts again. Again, sounds simple, not easy.
Not easy. And what I love about this book too is it gives you key points of each chapter and follow-up questions. And so just after chapter 1, follow-up questions, he says, examine your life. Which path are you on? If you find your identity through what you do or what you have, does that give you real peace and fulfillment? if those things or achievements were taken from you, who would you be? If you were stripped of everything that you earned, who would you actually be? And imagine you're 80 years old, and you mentioned this just a little bit ago. Looking back in your life, what is the most important to you? If you continue to live your life the way you are now, will that be your legacy? And I'm all about legacy, and it's not so much about like, what am I leaving behind? As we've talked about materialistic things, what's the generational wealth that I want to set up for my family? But what will people think of me when I'm gone? Like, will that bring them joy, or that bring them like, hey, he was cool, and move on? Like, or is there an impact that I'll have on people's lives? And that's, I think, what you're striving for.
100%. And one thing that's been really has simplified this for me with everyone sticking on the materiality piece, because it is important. Money allows us to have these impacts and chase the freedom to do what we want to do.
Yeah, it's a tool.
No one in Junto or any of our peers that are hammering away would switch lives with Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is doing all the things that we want to do. He's flying private. He's staying at the best hotels in the world when he wants to. He does and buys whatever he wants and can do whenever he wants. None of us would switch places with him because he's 97 years old, or however, 94, or whatever it is. No one would do it. You wouldn't give up that time for that money. So when you think about that each day, it's your future self. We're going to look back with more money in the bank down the road and give anything to be back in the most challenging times of our life because of the youth and the time and the drive. And remembering that is so big. And I think that's what he's also hitting on here. It's that perspective on what's really important.
Yeah, it is. And there's a lot of people that he quotes in this book that I didn't, you read these things and you're like, it's so profound. Teddy Roosevelt, 26th president of the United States. It's kind of a long one, but he says, it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how strong the man stumbles or who the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust, sweat, and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end of triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither knew victory nor defeat. Is that what you have on your wall?
I was just in case you needed to read that. I look at that every day. That's one of my the man in the arena is one of the best quotes ever, because it's true. The haters don't matter. Again, easier said than done. I say that a lot on this podcast, but it's the ones doing it. We can be armchair quarterbacks all we want, leave comments, keyboard warriors, trying to be crabs in the bucket, pull people down. But listen to the people that are in the battle, that are actually doing the thing. Take advice from those people. What you really care about, not the critic.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, especially if you ever heard the saying too, like, don't take advice from people who've never done or been where you want to go. Like, surround yourself with people who are in the arena, who are putting in the work day in and day out, whether it's your industry or not. Even if it's probably better if it is your industry. Like, don't look at them as competitors. Become partners in this thing and figure out how you can collaborate and learn from each other. We have some of that in Junto. We've got a couple of guys that are both in the insurance space, and they help each other immensely. Mm-hmm. But I mean, just finding the people that are doing the things and are above and far beyond where you are. And even if they're not, even if they're equal or a little bit lower, like, be that resource, and not lower, just more like, don't have as much experience or not at that level yet because they're just getting started or whatever. Leading with that heart mindset and just giving a shit. Really, it's just like actually caring about the success of others will in turn make you more successful. It's like the leader who dictates what to do, as opposed to the leader who's down in the trenches with the team and ensuring everyone else's success, because you know that if they're successful, you're successful.
And that's the paradox. That part is outward, right? The service portion and the impact portion is outward, but it's because of your inner excellence of being able to channel it that way. So it's this service. The things that should be external aren't for what we can take, receive, or be viewed as positive as. It's how can we lift those around us, and that exchange comes back. And that's how society, the reciprocation factor comes in, the go-giver mentality we talk about a lot. That's it. Like it literally works. It's a law.
Yeah.
Reciprocity.
Well, he talks about mastery, which is, a term that you bring up a lot, and self-mastery, especially with samurais and the stuff he was talking about, like the 1800s and even before then, how they were able to become masters of pain and masters of failure and masters of fear. Like they just were able to overcome, and they were able to do it in a way that you wouldn't think would make the most sense, but they would surrender. They were okay with surrendering and allowing that pain to happen. They weren't trying to think, how do I stop thinking about this pain? They were giving into that pain to let it just happen, and then they would prevail.
It's another paradox, right?
Yeah.
Like we think that it's striving and effort and intention, which is a part of it. But once you get to a certain point, if you don't surrender to reality, like the pain is the reality, the difficult things are the reality. And once you can surrender to that and have a good relationship to reality, that's when you can operate within it. If you want to fight the reality, you're toast, man. You're like
toast.
That is the problem with most. I wish it weren't this way, but it is this way. There's something that's simple and not easy that has helped me so much, and is the focus every day in the journal is like, what am I fighting in my reality right now? What's a fact that I don't want to accept? And he talks about that there in the book too, and that's which I love. I want to make sure we talk about. We just talked about the critic. The Man in the Arena was a great flow into that, which the critic, the monkey mind, and the trickster.
Yeah.
These are Eastern philosophies. This is Zen Buddhism. This is Taoism. And the critic, which I am can so relate to, that's the conversation in your mind. Worried about other people, not happy with yourself, not like what you see in the mirror. And it keeps you frozen in paralysis. And then the monkey mind starts overthinking all of those things. Takes what the critic takes and then just dwells on it, jumps all over the place, no focus. And then the trickster tells us a story based on these things, and then just keeps us in comfort to settle for less. I loved that section and was curious about what hit home for you in those three.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was, I think that was like chapter 3, if I'm remembering correctly. Yep. And it was like, yeah, the critic is your self-sabotage. It's your limiting beliefs. It's the ones that, he judges everything negatively. It says, I can't do this, or I'm not going to do this, or whatever. But you look at what you want, and you got to power through those things. You got to, you're always going to have external critics, but internal is probably the worst of them all, right? Because no one's judging you more than you judge yourself, more often than not. I know it happens to me all the time. If I screwed up, like I'm harder on me than anyone else could be harder on me. Like, but I have actually gotten a lot better. Like, well, shit. Okay. Well, I gave it my best. As long as I gave it my best and I tried, and it's like, yeah, I failed, but it wasn't a fail. It was a learning opportunity. It always is. And so,
and did I change my behavior based on it?
Correct. Did I pivot? Was I able to pivot and learn, or did I run and hide?
Yeah. Because that's the thing, like back to Hormozy, like when he said intelligence is the speed of behavior change, it slapped me in the face. It's like sometimes I could be a slow learner. These same lessons that keep appearing to us are going to keep showing up until you change. And intelligence isn't necessarily about IQ. Yeah, we get some of it genetic, but intelligence is the speed of behavior change. Same situation. Did I make a better decision? And I was like, wow, if you want to be a more productive and impactful human being, you want to be more intelligent, how quickly can you change your behavior? And those three things, the critic, monkey mind, and trickster, are exactly that.
Yeah.
What keep you from doing it.
Well, and the trickster is also like the guy that says, well, it's what I've always ever done. I've never done anything different. Is, like
it's comfort.
I'm going to go, like if we, a decade ago, a 12-pack Sunday. Well, every Sunday having a 12-pack, that's what I've always ever done. So why would I change?
Monday will be fine. I'll be cloudy and be clicking around and moving slow and lethargic. That's fine. It's always been fine.
And then life changes, right? Perspectives change. And if you don't change your behavior, like you just said, then, that's how you move fast and able to find that joy in your life is you recognize some of these things and you become self-aware. You're not self-centered, and you have to make these changes in order to continue that growth and then, achieve the things that you want to achieve and helping others. But he says that the way to overcome those things, the critic, the monkey mind, and the trickster. If I remember correctly, I think it's love, courage, and wisdom. Mm-hmm. And those three elements of your life, when you focus on the courage and the love and the wisdom that you're achieving or striving for or continue to recognize, that eliminates all of those limiting beliefs because you've got the confidence and freedom to pursue. And so I thought that was powerful. And some of the things I'd like to instill in my kids and just like, hey guys, don't let this stuff bog you down. Just focus day in, day out. Just focus on who you love, focus on the wisdom and knowledge that you can continue gaining, and then have the courage to go after it. Just have the grit, just work hard, build your work ethic, and have the courage to not be worried. What's the worst that's going to happen? You'll be able to pick yourself up and move on, but you'll learn from it.
100%. I've thought a lot about vibration at that piece, because you can't, how I am about energy. We're all operating on different waves. It's how you can feel a room when it's tense or joyful, productive energy. We feel all these things, and fear is near the bottom, and love is near the top, if not at the top. They can't really exist together. That's why in like meditation, you go to bring up the people you love the most. Fear cannot really exist when you're there. You'll notice it in your frame, and there are exercises to do this with your body. Like when you take your mind to someone you love versus a situation that you're really fearful for, you're literally stronger if you put resistance on the body when you're thinking of these things. And it doesn't make a lot of sense, because when we're fear, what's going to make you want to say, oh, let me just think about love. Like, what is love? You got to bring that feeling into you to get to courage. And then after repetition, I think that's where the wisdom comes from. I think that's what we all want to do, right? We want to be wise at the end of this journey. That's what's going to allow us to give back. When you're older, you're nearing the end of your life, you want to be wise and share the learnings that you took across this journey that wasn't a smooth line up and to the right. Wisdom is what we're trying to seek.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned earlier, having the heart where you have so much confidence and so much power inside of yourself that you know what you're capable of, that what you're doing doesn't even matter. It's the caring for others that matters, and that ends up coming back tenfold in that fulfillment that you're seeking. And it's just a really cool perspective. And we'll kind of end here. This is about through chapter 4. It talks about the fearless 4, and it's just daily process goals. Like whatever your 100% is today, like whatever you have in you, if you have 100% of only 50%, it's like 60% of the time, 100% of the time, it works every time. But just give your best, right? So the first, just give your best. No matter what you have in you today, give it your all. If you're not feeling well, you're down a little bit, but you got 70% to give to your actions today, give 70% and just give it all, whatever you have today, and being present and being grateful and focusing on your routine and only what you can control. So it goes back to define that perfect day and define that perfect mindset for what you need to do to have that perfect day, and give it your all, be present, be grateful, and only control what you can control, and don't worry about anything else.
That sums it up perfectly. Nothing we talk about in this podcast exists or works, for me anyway, if we're not present, like in that moment, fully doing what we're doing on this podcast right now, trying to spread some inner excellence, information and love. And I just have to throw one more thing in here. That was a great way to tie up the 3 U's. And you talked about self-mastery, which I think is a huge theme for this, defining success for yourself and self-mastery, right? He talked about the 3 U's. And to master yourself, which is the ego, which we need a little bit of ego, but we got to control that ego and get rid of a large portion of it. And the way to do that is to be unoffendable, unembarrassable, and unirritatable.
And nothing matters.
This might be the most simple, not easy. To be unoffendable, how can you be the duck, in your words?
Mm-hmm.
Water off a duck. Unembarrassable. If you're, like you said earlier, if I'm doing this with intention, I'm doing my best, I'm operating for my principles and best character possible, I shouldn't be embarrassed for falling short or miscues that I have. And unirritatable, probably not going to happen, but gosh, if you can again, back to the water off a duck's back, let the small stuff shake off, really focus on what matters, that's self-mastery. So I love the way he encompassed those 3 U's. And wanted to make sure he
did a good job of talking about your ego and how so many people are like, that is like, I got to be this person or that person or whatever. I got to have this much or that much. And the ego is what drives them. But then the ego is also what tears them down.
Egos are not our amigos.
Yeah, exactly. Sure.
I'm so glad you shared this with me, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Thanks for putting together. I mean, you did a lot of prep for this, and I would check out the book. We talked about investing in yourself. This is a very inexpensive way to get the Well,
it's cool that we're reading this one together. Usually you're giving me a book recommendation you've already read a couple of times, and I'm going through it. And this one's you hadn't picked up, which is cool to kind of offer this one to you. And again, it was like one of those things, just a totally unexpected gift that is so underrated, and it just makes you feel good that someone else was thinking about you. And I had Jack read the first little bit. He's 12, and it's probably a little age-wise, he probably needs to be about 14, 15 to pick up some of these concepts. I think there's definitely some big stuff, but he's already starting to read some, like he's reading Relentless and other things. So like he'll be there soon.
It'll be there when the time's right.
Yeah. But yeah, chapter 5, it starts talking about how a group of warriors mastered their ego, and it just continues on. And I'm excited to get through the rest of this thing, and maybe we'll do another pod for the tail end of the book as we finish it.
I think I'm going to throw in the rucksack and keep it rolling, listen to some this afternoon. So
there you go, man.
More to come.
It was a good rip.
Good rip. Back at you next week.